When an unexpected meeting invitation flashed on my monitor without an explanation or agenda, I knew trouble was brewing. My coffee was still steaming on the desk while Blaine entered the glass boardroom like a conqueror claiming his kingdom. He was the son of the founder, oozing arrogant entitlement while the rest of us held our breath. Before anyone could react, he announced my immediate termination in front of 70 colleagues. The announcement felt like a physical blow, yet I forced my face to remain completely expressionless. 12 years of tireless dedication to Aegis Dynamics was wiped away in 5 seconds without human resources involvement or prior warning. Blaine claimed my position was being absorbed into general operations to improve efficiency. I collected my framed photographs, unplugged my desk lamp, and walked toward the exit with absolute calm and dignified quiet. I spent over a decade building the compliance infrastructure that kept this massive corporation operational during federal reviews. The senior executives rarely understood what I actually did because I made complex regulatory protocols look effortless. They assumed the systems ran on magic rather than late nights and obsessive attention to detail. Leaving behind the cubicles felt surreal, but I knew the foundation would crumble without proper oversight. As I walked through the main atrium toward the glass exit doors, heavy footsteps echoed behind me. Walter Prescott, the octogenarian board chairman, came running out of the executive elevator with a pale face and trembling hands. He bypassed Blaine entirely and grabbed Raymond, the chief executive officer, by his shoulder. Walter whispered in a raspy, panicked voice that they had just removed the only person keeping their primary government contract valid. 3 hours later, I was back inside the corporate office sitting across from Blaine and Raymond in a private conference room. Raymond offered a rehearsed corporate apology while Blaine casually sipped an iced beverage and dismissed my entire career as minor paperwork. They believed a humble consulting fee would convince me to smoothly transition my responsibilities. They had no idea that a massive regulatory storm was already gathering 2 floors below us. A senior representative from the Department of Defense named Diane Carver had just sent an urgent transmission regarding our quarterly security agreement. The contract explicitly stated that my personal signature was required for every single renewal and validation. When junior legal staff informed her that my employment had ended, Diane immediately flagged the entire operation as non-compliant. The entire billion-dollar contract froze in an instant, causing immediate chaos across all departments. Back inside the conference room, phones began ringing incessantly as executive assistants scrambled down the hallway in visible distress. I reached into my leather purse, took out a blank sticky note, and wrote Clause 42 in clear black letters. I slid the paper across the polished wooden table directly toward Raymond. The room fell completely silent as Blaine picked up the paper with trembling fingers and visible confusion. I explained with absolute calmness that Clause 42 was a binding safeguard I inserted years ago to protect the company from incompetent leadership. Without my active verification or explicit approval, the entire framework locked down automatically. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and informed them that future meetings regarding my expertise would require my name on the formal agenda. I walked out of the building as executive panic spread like wildfire. When I arrived at my apartment, I logged into the original compliance network that I personally developed from scratch years earlier. The platform was built on outdated architecture that only I fully comprehended, giving me absolute administrator control over every administrative protocol. I initiated a final security script that locked all system pathways and disabled remote transfer requests. The entire database went dark, effectively locking the doors behind me forever. I sent a single encrypted message to my loyal assistant, Jasmine Brooks, advising her to stay calm and prepare for total chaos. Jasmine possessed incredible attention to detail and had saved the firm from massive compliance fines multiple times in the past. Within hours, system error notifications began flooding the corporate network as automated audit logs failed to generate. The corporate machine was grinding to a complete halt because the missing keys were in my possession. Rather than seeking revenge, I focused on my next professional move by sending my portfolio to Stratton Analytics, a hungry rival firm. They recognized my unmatched industry reputation immediately and offered me a high-level advisory role within hours. Meanwhile, Blaine attempted to downplay the growing crisis internally, claiming on public channels that the system issues were merely temporary maintenance delays. However, everyone in the building knew the truth behind the disruption. By Wednesday afternoon, federal representatives suspended all active communication with Aegis Dynamics due to missing compliance documentations. Major government contractors began canceling scheduled negotiations after learning that my signature was absent from the renewal forms. Jasmine was abruptly terminated by Blaine in a desperate attempt to assert dominance, but her departure only accelerated the internal collapse. Executive leadership was completely incapable of operating the complex machinery I had constructed over 12 years. A formal audit notice arrived at the corporate headquarters via certified courier, demanding an immediate review of all federal agreements. The document explicitly cited Clause 42 and requested my direct presence to avoid a complete revocation of active operational licenses. Raymond frantically called my personal cell phone multiple times, but I allowed every call to go directly to voicemail. I had no interest in saving individuals who had discarded my hard work without hesitation. During an emergency board meeting later that evening, Walter Prescott openly condemned Raymond and Blaine for their catastrophic lack of judgment. He reminded the entire room that my binding contract clauses were created alongside former leadership to prevent unqualified executives from destroying the company. The board realized too late that my presence was the sole structural pillar holding their entire business model together. The arrogance of the leadership had finally cost them everything. The following evening, the annual shareholder assembly convened in the main ballroom under an atmosphere of intense anxiety and corporate dread. Raymond stood at the podium attempting to reassure nervous investors, while Blaine cowered near the back guarded by private security officers. Suddenly, the double doors opened, and I entered the room alongside Diane Carver and the federal procurement team. The room went completely silent as new vendor slides appeared on the main presentation screen. Stratton Analytics had officially secured the massive government contract, stripping Aegis Dynamics of its primary source of institutional revenue. The board voted unanimously to terminate Blaine immediately for gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty as security escorted him out. I offered a calm, polite smile to Raymond before turning away to begin my new chapter with absolute peace of mind. True leverage never requires shouting when you are the author of the entire rulebook.